What is return? That's a question that we all ask ourselves as we invest, as we save, and as we think about our futures. Hello, my name is Dan Proskauer, and I'm not an investment professional, I'm not an insurance agent, and I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just a regular person like you who is interested in his family's future and what is the best way to secure that future. Today, I would like to talk about how we define return and how we achieve maximal return with minimal risk. How do you define return? When I ask this question, many people describe return as how much they get back for what they put in. That's a positive return. Sometimes we have to think about what we lose when we put money in, and that's a negative return. Going to the vault of all truth, Wikipedia, the rate of return is the ratio of money gained or lost, whether realized or unrealized, relative to the amount of money invested. That's the definition of return we'll use in this discussion. In this presentation, I'd like to compare three different approaches. You're probably familiar with the first, bank savings accounts. Typically today, you might see a return of 1% on a savings account. Actually, 1% would be a terrific savings account these days. And maybe 2.5% on a 10-year CD, if there was such a thing as a 10-year CD. CDs today typically stop at 5 years. The second thing you're probably also familiar with, the stock market. In this case, as a proxy for the stock market, we'll use a typical 529 college investment plan that uses a classic asset allocation strategy. And finally, you may be less familiar with the third approach, the bank on yourself, dividend-paying whole life insurance policies. Let's start looking at the savings account return. The bottom line describes a 0% return. If you put $20,921 per year, every year for 20 years, your balance in your savings account would be reflected in the purple line, ending 20 years at $418,420. If that savings account had a 1% return, you would have $460,660. At 2.5%, you would have $534,420. Of course, today, savings account returns are very low, and achieving a 2.5% return would be a real find. Let's move on to the stock market. This account is a real account, and these screenshots were taken from Fidelity's website for my 15-year-old son's college investment account. What you see here is the investment return as calculated by Fidelity from January 31st, 2003. This account was actually opened before that date, but that's when Fidelity started capturing and calculating returns. And you can see here, since that date, this account has returned a positive 3.67%. But looking down on the left at that graph, the yellow line indicates the money that I put in, and the blue line indicates the value of the account. And you can see that as I put more money in, the value of the account went up. But there was a period of time, unsurprisingly during the financial crisis, that the value of the account actually dropped below the sum of all the money that I had put in. And when you look at these dates, you'll also notice it does not include the 2000 to 2001 crash. So I actually opened this account in December of 1999, and I moved all the money out of the stock market into a money market account in December of 2009. So during that 10-year period, I contributed $67,000 for a total gain above and beyond of what I put in of less than $10,000. For that 10 years, that's an average return of 1.5%. Obviously, 1.5% is significantly worse than the 3.67% calculated by Fidelity, but let's pretend that 3.67% is what you might expect in the stock market. Now let's look at a bank on yourself type dividend-paying whole life insurance policy. Here we have the same purple line reflecting 0% return, and we also see the 1% and 2.5% returns of a savings account or 10-year CD, as well as the 3.67% return of the hypothetical stock market. The orange line with the arrows is showing the 3.86% return that I derived from one of my real bank on yourself type dividend paying whole life insurance policies. Here you can see that the return of this policy beats the savings account, which is very safe, and beats the stock market, which is not safe at all. So we have a higher return with even less risk. What makes the bank on yourself type policy even more exciting is that I can access almost all of the funds in that policy under current tax law on a tax-free basis. That means I never pay any more tax than I've already paid when I saved the money to put it in the policy in the first place. When you compare that to the other investments, to be fair, you need to look at it at an after-tax equivalent rate, which increases the return to 5.44%, using a hypothetical 29% tax bracket. One of the amazing things about a bank on yourself type dividend-paying whole life insurance policy is that the growth accelerates over time and is really maximized at the time you need it the most during your retirement. Again, looking at my real policy, if you extend the time window out to 40 years, the total return on that policy ends up being 4.77%, even though I stop paying all premiums after year 20. There's no free lunch though, and a bank on yourself type policy is a long-term commitment. If you look here at this chart, you can see that the returns actually start off negative. That means in the early years of a policy, I have less cash value than the amount of money that I've put into the policy. But you can see how steeply that return grows, and you can see both the 4.77% absolute return and then 6.72% tax equivalent return at the 40th year. What that means is that you would have to find an investment that would give you 6.72% return on an after-tax basis that is safe and secure. While it's true that if you cashed out your dividend-paying whole life insurance policy in the early years, you would get back less than what you put in, one question is the return ever really negative? Because you can't forget that you're also getting a death benefit for that money. In this chart, the green line represents the annualized return you would get if you died in that year of the policy and got the death benefit. You can see that the annualized return is huge in the early years, and over time starts to line up with the annualized investment return. So in the early years of the policy, your return is actually protected by the death benefit. In conclusion, it's clear that you can count on a savings account to be safe, but the returns are very small. The stock market may have somewhat better returns than a savings account, but comes with tremendous risk and high volatility. A bank on yourself type dividend-paying whole life insurance policy is a long-term commitment, but one that provides significantly better returns than both a savings account and the stock market, and with much lower risk. Everyone needs to make their own assessment of their comfort with different kinds of risk and different kinds of investments. All I can say is that for our family, the safety, security, predictability, and excellent returns of bank on yourself style dividend-paying whole life insurance policies have been a terrific solution for us, knowing that our money is growing safely, securely, and predictably, and that we have access to our money anytime we need it through a policy loan, whether that's for buying a car, working on our house, or paying for our children's college education. And of course,